Hello, this is Chris Schallert. I'm glad to see you again. I'm glad you tuned in because this is a very important topic to me and to a lot of people I know. How do we get our students to engage better with open-ended projects? We give them a blank slate and they just look at it with the blank slate stare. And it's very difficult because you go, I know you kids are intelligent. I know you're very creative. And what is so hard about just pick a subject? Well, for some of them, it is a matter of they can't pick a subject. They don't necessarily know a lot about it. Now, get your pencils and papers ready, and your timer also, because we're going to keep doing some blitzes in this exercise. And this time, the subject is a little bit different than my first video. Especially if you're a teacher, this shouldn't be too hard for you. Take 1 minute, pause the video, and write on this prompt. I may need to get a video guide for how to line this thing up right the first time. So, we want to make school very interesting and engaging for students, not for an entertainment factor, because this is school, this isn't the movies. We want to make it interesting for them because learning is interesting to us. How can we share our passion if they seem so unimpassioned by everything that goes on around them? I know this is especially hard in mathematics and in science classes. We try to make it personal for them in some way by trying to get to a broad variety of topics. I think that that's a very misguided approach. Projects and papers, but especially projects, I'm big into physically doing things, are their way of making a subject personally relevant, or it's a way for them to make a subject personally relevant. And that can be very difficult to come up with because you say, but they don't care about molecular biology. I don't even know why they're in this class. It's not an easy A. Well, blitz number 2. Again, pause for a minute, and you're pretty much going to finish writing down the names of a lot of your students. And go. So now you've thought of a lot of your students, and they're the memorable ones. They might be the ones that do get it, and they're the first names that came out of your head because they're the ones that bring you the most joy with your subject. And then the next ones to come out were probably the ones that frustrate you quite a bit. And you go, this is my trouble student. I want to do something better for them, but I just can't seem to reach them. They're the difficult ones. Now here's a terrible fact about students that sadly many of us teachers have forgotten. Students gonna slack. We did in our time, they do in theirs. They're gonna slack unless they have a personal interest in the subject. You know how that goes. Suddenly something really intrigues them. You know, the boys suddenly get really into dissecting a fish, or a girl saw A Beautiful Mind, or that new one where the ladies were all in charge of the math for putting men on the moon. All of a sudden, bam, they're into it. They want to know. When they see it as a personal interest, they're going to take a lot more investment into it. They're going to be very interested. And I know you can't reach every single person's personal interest. That's why I encourage projects where they choose the subject, but you choose the direction. After all, if somebody's writing about the proper ways to apply mascara as a math paper, not necessarily so good. But if they want to talk about how to apply mascara in a mathematically aesthetic way for their art class and talk about perfect proportions, experiments from the past, from the present, from the future, etc., that's the sort of thing that can draw them into your subject. Mascara in ancient Egypt. The chemical makeup of mascara that irritates some eyes but leaves others alone. These are different ways that you can turn a subject that otherwise bores somebody by combining it with a subject that really interests them. Blitz number 3. You ready? This is going to be the part that you'll do better than you think on. So, for 1 minute, go. Every single student has a different background, and we know this, but we don't always really grasp it. The farm boy is going to have a very different background than the city boy, and the artistic child is going to have a very different background than the musical child, than the mathematical child, than the even the home environment, the amount of interest that the parents take. I'm not going to get into all of that. There are better videos about that, but we know that they have backgrounds and they have boredom triggers. This is very difficult. So one of the big ways that I advocate doing class better is do what one of my professors did. Get them up and have them stretch and move and wave their arms every 20 minutes of class. Like I said in my original video, you need to move your body. You're sitting down, you're getting sore, you're getting bored. Stand up, move, stretch a little bit, and you're going to be better to go. All right. Now, we have some students' names. We have their backgrounds, because that's all going to be unique to your classroom. Now, this one is your class subjects. That's not just saying I teach mathematics. You're saying I teach trigonometry. The things I'm going to cover are the Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to cover distance under an arc. I'm going to be covering sine waves, cosine, etc. Write down everything you can think of that you're going to cover in your particular subject. Everything you can think of in 1 minute. And go. Whew, I bet you didn't think you were going to be back in a literature class, did you? I know you have limited time and you have limited planning energy. But I recommend this. If you haven't done it at the beginning of if it's too late to do it at the beginning of the school year, do it this next morning. Have them give you a list of all of their interests. Run them through a Pareto blitz for 2 rounds of all of their different interests. And tell them that the first things to come off their mind are the ones that they're already interested in. The ones that they already have something to say about. And then look at their lists. And you might want to take them home and think about them over the night. And look at them and go, how does each and every one of their interests possibly fit in what I'm doing? Don't sit there and write an essay for each and every one. Just look at it and get used to it. Because you might be telling the kids, here's how to design the perfect pop can to drink your perfect soda out of. And that's a perfect physics exercise. But you have to understand where their interests are coming from, because very often their interests are nowhere near your actual class. But if you can combine them, and that's the big idea, you can combine their interests with your knowledge to really expand their world. In order to get them a topic that they can relate to, that really, really interests them, you're going to do what I call the mix and mash, where you're going to take your subjects that you teach and you're going to put them on like one side of the board, and you're going to put their interests that they told you and you're going to put them on another side of the board. Go ahead, use your own whiteboard. You have a classroom. And what you're going to do is, and this is going to be a Pareto blitz for another day, mix and mash. You're going to just draw lines, random lines. It doesn't matter whether they match up or not. You're going to say, this kid's interest with robots, and I'm going to combine it over here with area under a curve. It doesn't matter. What you're doing is you're connecting their ideas differently. And you're starting to see connections. And you're going to say all of a sudden, wait a minute, those two things do relate. I'm going to combine them in a single lesson. Or I'm going to use that for my illustration in that lesson. I know it takes a lot of work. You only have so much time. You only have so much energy. But I believe that this is an excellent way to go about it. In fact, I encourage you, take 2 minutes now, put it all on a separate piece of paper, and do a quick mix and mash. You have 2 minutes. Ready? Go. I know, it's kind of a weird thing. How are you going to mix up ancient Egypt and how to make a pop can? I don't know. But that's another strong thing about really any form of creativity. You're not coming up with brand new material, you're combining old material in new ways. And that is an exceedingly powerful way to reach your students, to say, hey, I know your interests are mostly fishing and hunting, but here's how we can fit that into this mathematics course you're taking. And it makes the subject relevant to the student. Some students are still going to say, no, I don't care. And this solution isn't a catch-all. This is not going to fix every single disengagement problem that you ever have. But this is really getting the students to think, my interests have a place in this class. I have a place in anywhere I go, and I can make this all work, and I can combine in different ways to do something that will surprise my professor. Students love it when they can do that, when they hand you a paper and you just go, whoa, I never would have thought of that. Students love that. It's not going to be every student. It's not going to work in every situation. But this is one way I believe you can use all of your creativity to foster their creativity by coming up with something completely new that they've never done before. I believe it can work. Whether it will or not, it's partly up to you, partly up to the student. Give it a shot. This is Chris Schallert, Idea Engine. By the way, remember to subscribe to my video feed here, because you'll get all of these videos on early release before anybody else gets them, along with eventually accompanying worksheets, resources, and my own newsletter, which I'm going to be sending out. I want to address a different topic of creativity or a different exercise or a different application with each newsletter. It's going to be coming out monthly. Have a good day. Go out and create.